Our first word is impudent. Somebody who's impudent is disrespectful in a forceful manner. Probably not a physical force, but in a very blatant emotional way. We might say you're impudent if you're ready to say you've got a lot of nerve. That's being impudent. It comes from a Latin root in, meaning not, and the verb pudere, which meant to cause shame. So we get a variety of words from pud, very closely related to the pud that you get in repudiate. And if you repudiate somebody, you're sort of pushing them away, mainly shaming them, pushing them away. It should be paired up with the fourth definition down, characterized by impertinence or effrontery. We've had those words before. It means, again, being forcefully disrespectful. Our next word is sanguine. It's a word that means to describe somebody who's happy, optimistic, positive-minded, enthusiastic, confident. It can also really just mean red, as in blood red. The origin of the word is from sanguis. It's a French word, and sanguis was their word for blood. And how you get from blood to being happy and optimistic, I don't know. But it happens in other parts of English. We say you're a red-blooded American. Well, I don't know of any other type of American there is besides red-blooded. There's no green-blooded ones, to my knowledge. My guess is that we sort of associate red as being happy, being real. So since sanguis meant blood, evolved into that meaning, happy or optimistic. Colors are often used in language to mean other things than the obvious value. You're yellow means you're a coward. You're blue means you're depressed. You're in the pink generally means you're healthy. So it shouldn't be any surprise that a word that meant blood red shifted its meaning to being happy. Sanguine should be paired up with the third definition down, cheery, optimistic, and hopeful. Our next word is prosaic. Generally speaking, when we use prosaic, we're talking about something that's ordinary or not special, everyday stuff. It can refer to prose. Prose is the type of writing that's just plain writing. Poetry, you have all different types of literature, but just plain simple writing is considered prose. So it can refer to either one of those, but it always has that sense of being just ordinary, not special. And you should think about it as prose. Prose in itself is something that's not special. It's just regular writing. It comes from the Latin prosa oratio, which meant straightforward talk. And you can see the pro means the forward part of that. We still have that in prosaic and prose. So it comes from that. So you want to just write in a plain and simple way, you're writing in a prosaic way. That should be paired up with the sixth definition down, commonplace or dull. Our next word is tenacity. It comes from tenacious. If you're tenacious, you have tenacity. And I best can describe the definition by just saying it's this feeling of never giving up. It's a quality that many cultures have. In Japan, they say never give up, gambate kudasai, and they say different ways in every language. You have tenacity. You want to keep doing what you're doing, and you do not waver from what you're doing. And it's from the Latin tenere, which meant to hold. We get the root ten and tain. That's a French-derived Latin root. In a lot of words. Detention is when you hold somebody in jail. A tenor is the way you hold yourself. Or retain is you hold something onto something. If something's tentative, you barely hold onto something. Tenacity just means never give up. It should be paired with the very top definition, holding fast, characterized by keeping a firm hold. Our fifth word is reconciliation. Reconciliation means to settle, to appease, to understand, resolve. If a man and a woman are married and they are having a hard time and they separate and they get divorced, they might have a reconciliation. It's used in a very broad sense in accounting when you're trying to make sure that your accounts are making sense. You want to match them up to make sure that they're compatible with each other. You would have a reconciliation of accounts. It's a word that comes from a Latin re again, which makes sense here. You're going back again. And the Latin conciliare, which meant to make friendly. We get the word conciliate from that, which you might be familiar with. So you get back together again. It should be paired up with the seventh definition down, the process of making consistent or compatible. Our sixth word is myopic. It comes from myopia. And if any of you have contact lenses or eyeglasses, spectacles, you might know this word if you're nearsighted. Being nearsighted is having myopia. So that's the physical meaning, nearsighted, but we sort of changed that in a metaphorical way into meaning short-sighted in your thinking. So it evolved from that to almost lacking tolerance or understanding. If you're very short-sighted, you don't have a lot of understanding. You might say that all racists are short-sighted and they become very intolerant. That's one way of thinking about it. It comes from a couple of words, mayan meant to shut and ops meaning eye. And when you see that word myopia or myopic, you should really remember the opt, because opt always means eye. You get the word optician or optical from that, and it has something to do with the eye. It should be paired up with the very last definition on the list, short-sighted. Our seventh word is sagacious. If you're sagacious, you're wise, you're sage-like. The word sage, S-A-G-E, is a wise man, so it's obviously a related word. If you're sagacious, you're discerning, you're clever, you're intelligent, you're judicious, you're cute, you're sharp, you're keen. There's a lot of synonyms that go with sagacious. It's a very important word. And again, you should keep in mind what a sage is, a wise man. Very distantly, it's very related to the Latin sapien, sage. We get words like homo sapien from that, wise man. Sagus in the Latin meant somebody who could make prophecies, to perceive keenly. So that's the origin of the word. It should be matched up with the eighth on the list, shrewd, showing sound judgment. Our eighth word is elocution. Elocution is a person's manner of speaking or reading aloud in public. It's how you allocute. It's what you say. And you should pay very close attention to that Luke part. It's spelled L-O-C. In this case, sometimes it's L-O-Q. It comes from the Latin, which meant to talk, to speak. And you see it in words such as allocution or eloquence. Locative means that you're very talkative. So all of those have something to do with talk. And it should be paired up with the ninth definition down, the art of public speaking. Our ninth word is malaise. Malaise is a general condition of bodily weakness. If you're very, very weak, you have malaise. We've taken that to a more metaphorical sense, where we say it's a vague or odd feeling of mental uneasiness. I think the most famous use of malaise was President Jimmy Carter's speech, where he said America was in a malaise. That was during one of our recessions. And it's a very, very useful word, especially in standardized tests. It's from the French vis-a-vis the Latin. You see the mal, we've had several words with mal in it. They all mean bad, and you can see this is bad. And aise, which was the French word, old French word for ease. Aise and ease, you can see the connection there. So if you put those together, you're bad, ill, at ease, you have malaise. That should be paired with the fifth definition down the list, vague feeling of discomfort. Our last word was flotsam. In a very specific sense, flotsam only relates to shipping. In other words, stuff that's floated off of a ship, usually from a wreck. If it's useless and unimportant, we also use the word flotsam. It's derived from that word. So you could have the flotsam of bureaucratic red tape. In other words, it doesn't have to do anything with ships or shipwrecks anymore. You might guess that the flot in flotsam has to do with floating, and it does. It's derived to us in English from the Old French. So it meant something floating. And it should be distinguished, the word flotsam from jetsam. They're very, very different words. A lot of people confuse the two. Flotsam is the stuff that you have after a ship is wrecked. So you're in a hurricane, the ship is wrecked, and things float. And jetsam is the stuff that you purposely throw off in order to save the ship. So they're very, very different meanings, and different legally too. If you find flotsam, it's yours. If you find jetsam, it's still the owner of that ship. So he was throwing it off because he had to in order to save his ship. So those two words get confused very, very, very often. Flotsam should be paired with the second definition on the list, a wreckage of a ship floating on the water or useless items.